Hi, welcome to another Rust tutorial. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be talking about structs. Structs are a user-defined data type that helps you group together information that is related to a particular kind of object. So in other programming languages, it's similar to object-oriented programming. So let's say, for example, we want to create a struct around cars. Okay, so what we might have is we might have fields in there that relate to the make, the model, the year it was registered, whether it's electric, petrol, or diesel. So that's, how we can kind of create an object out of a real world thing and group data together. So I'm going to jump into the console. I'm going to show you how to define a struct and how to use a struct. And we'll also be playing around with some examples of how we can create multiple structs and also change the data in them. Okay, so let's dive into the console now and I'll take you through it. So I'm here in my console and we have a very typical function main, print hello world. I'll just show you that that's working. So we do cargo run. Okay, good, hello world. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a struct, and I'm going to use a movie struct. So to create a struct, we use the struct keyword here. Then we give it a name, movies, and I need to define some fields in here. So the kind of information we might have around movies, we could have lots of information, but I'm just going to start with the name of the movie, the director, and the year it was released. So we need, first of all, the title. And that's going to be a string type. We need a director, also a string. And we want the year it was released. So we're just going to have that, and we're going to give that a type of I32. So we've defined our struct movies here. So having created the struct to store the data in, the next thing we need to do is create an instance of that data. In my earlier example where we were talking about cars, we talked about the make, model, and the year it was manufactured. So we might want to store the fact that the car is a VW, that the model is a Golf, and that it was made in 2020 or something like that. In the example using movies, we want to be able to store information about the title of the movie, the director, and the year it was released. So I'm going to go back into the console, and we're going to do that now. So first we need a variable to store this in. So I'm going to call this rush, which will become apparent in a second. Let movies, and then we're going to give the values for the actual fields here. String from rush. Director was Ron Howard. And the year was 2013. So having created a variable to store those values in, the next thing we need to do is we need to be able to get the values back out in some way or use them in some way. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. I'm just going to use a simple print statement that is going to get the values back out of the instance that we've created. The director is now the way that we get the values out is using a thing called dot notation. Okay, so we're going to use the name of the variable followed by a full stop, a dot, or a period, depending on your choice, and then the field that we want. So rush dot title, rush dot director, rush dot year. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's see if it runs. Okay, so that ran okay. We got the title of the movie is Rush, the director is Ron Howard, the year is 2013. So that's how we can create a struct. We can then store some data in it using a variable Rush, and how we can retrieve that data in some way. Okay, next I want to show you how we can use a function to return an instance of our struct. So by using a function, we can make a function call, we can pass in the various parameters to it, and we will get an instance of that function back. So I'm going to show you that, and then if you stay on, I'm just going to also show you how we can improve that and make it slightly more Rust idiomatic. Okay, so let's do that now in the console. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new function up here. I'm just going to call this, I don't know, create movie. And then we need to have our parameters defined. So we've got title, and that's type of string. We've got the director, that's type string, and we've got the year, and that's an I32. That is going to return a type of movies. And so in here we can take this code, we can paste it into here. We don't need to have a variable to define here, so I'm just going to create movies. Now in here we don't need this information. We're just going to add title, which is coming from this parameter. So we're passing title to title, director, and year. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to remove that semicolon. That's going to make this return the struct of movie back. Okay, so having done that in here, I don't need this, but what I do need to do is I need to call my function. So in this case, let rush equal create movie, and we need to add these parameters. So first of all, we need to pass in the title, which is Rush, and we need to do two string. The director is next, Ron Howard. And then the year, 2013. Okay, so what we're now going to do is we're going to use create a new variable here. It's going to call the function, and it's going to pass these values in. And then down here, we're going to retrieve that back because it's stored in the variable rush, and then we're going to print those details out. Okay. So the movie structure was defined, it's returned the values, and we've printed it out. So we got the same result, but we're just using a function. So what I want to do now is I want to show you how we can improve this function, and we're going to use the field init shorthand, which allows us to make it more Rust idiomatic. We're going to remove some code, we're going to strip out some code, but it'll achieve the same thing. So I'll jump back into the terminal and show you that now. So in the earlier example, I showed you that we're passing in the title, the director, and the year, and we put them in here. But we can actually get rid of these, and Rust will know that we are using those values. Okay, so we've eliminated some of the repetition of code here, which is always good. We're going to get the same result, so that's fine, but it's just a better way of doing it using the field init shorthand. So as I predicted, we were able to use the field init shorthand to remove some of the duplicate code that we had in there, and it's just a more clean and efficient way of actually passing those parameters into the struct and instantiating it. Structs can also have associated functions, which are called methods. They're implemented using the imp keyword, and they allow us to manipulate the data in some way. I'm going to show you how to do that in the console right now. So we use the imp keywords, we use the associated struct name, and then open the curly brackets and we define a function. So I'm going to call this describe movie. And with that, we then need to take self as a parameter. And then what we need to do is we need to perform the actions that we actually want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal this line down here. And instead of using rush, I'm going to use self. Okay, so now having defined our function, what all it's going to do is print out the name of the movie as we saw earlier. But down here we need to amend our code, so we're going to have rush, and then we need to describe movie. Okay, so that worked. The code has run, and instead of printing the line out down here, what it's done is it's gone and called the describe movie function, and it's returned the result from there. So you can see how we can have methods which will perform specific functions within our struct. So the last thing I want to show you in this introduction to structs is how we can use the derived traits, and in particular the derive debug trait, to print out information about the whole struct and the information that we've got in it. I'll show you what I mean in the terminal right now if you follow along. So you would think that we can print out all of the information here. We've used dot notation to return individual fields here, but let's see what happens if we try to print out the whole information. So you would think that this is going to return all of the information that we've stored in our struct. You can see it doesn't do that, and it's generated an error. So let's take a look at that error now. So you can see that it needs to implement the trait standard format display, which it doesn't. And we should be able to use these different types to return the information here. So the colon and question mark, the colon, the hash, and the question mark for pretty printing. So I'm going to show you how to fix this error if you ever get it. So we're going to come up to our struct, and we will add hashtag. I've lost my hashtag. Derive debug. So by adding this to the top here, this derived trait to the top, derive debug, we should now be able to get a printout. But if we return to our error message, it said to use this format here. Okay, so now if you look at this information, it's given us all of the information that it can return: title, rush, director, Ron Howard, year 2013, and we hadn't used dot notation. Imagine if we had a much bigger struct. That would be too hard to see on one line. So what we want to do is we want to implement pretty printing. So to add pretty printing, we just add in here the hash character, and I'm going to print that information out again. So you can now see that it's pre-printed the return. So movies, title Rush, director Ron Howard, year 2013. So this block of text here is much easier to read in a human format and helps us debug our code. Okay, so that was a really quick introduction to structs, and what we did is we went through how to define a struct. We went through how to define a struct using a function. We also then went through how to return information using dot notation, and we also went through how to use the derive debug to print information from the whole struct in a format that is all on one line or pretty printed. So I hope you found that useful. If you like the information, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and thanks for watching. See you next time.